Do not let the haters slow you down because every great story is built on resistance, and this one is no different. Thoughtful. Everyone thought they already knew how this story would end, with Diddy behind bars and 50 Cent standing tall, celebrating victory, while the documentary sealed the legacy. Short pause. But what nobody saw coming was that the real power shift was never between those two men. Whisper it was happening quietly in the background, led by two 18-year-old girls, Jessie and Delilah Combs, who were never just watching events unfold. Calculating. They were learning, calculating and positioning themselves, while the world focused on headlines and viral clips. The twins stayed silent. Long pause. No posts, no reactions, no emotional outbursts. Just silence. And that silence spoke louder than any statement because, according to sources close to the family, their social media was being flooded with harassment memes and attacks linked to 50 Cent fan culture. And instead of clapping back, they archived everything, saved screenshots, logged usernames, and waited. Because sometimes the strongest move is patience. And the moment everything changed was not when the documentary dropped, but in the 72 hours after, when Sean Combs, The Reckoning hit Netflix. Expectations were chaos, outrage, and public breakdowns. Yet the twins vanished completely, which led many to believe they were retreating, but insiders say they were doing the opposite. Determined, gathering evidence, preparing leverage, and setting the stage for something much bigger. And while 50 Cent's camp celebrated thinking the battle was over, the twins were quietly building a documented trail of aggression because in legal and media wars, perception is currency and proof is power. And then came the courtroom appearance on October 3rd, where many expected emotional pleas, but instead witnessed something far more calculated. Calmly, Jessie spoke calmly, acknowledging imperfection, but emphasizing presence and family, while Delilah layered her statement with references to loss, confusion, and absence. But those close to the situation say the real message was hidden beneath the words. This was not just a plea for mercy, it was a signal, a negotiation move, a way of saying they had something valuable to trade, and shortly after that, the money appeared on November 15th. A $2 million transfer landed in the account of their newly formed fashion brand, officially labeled Startup Capital, but unofficially whispered about as a war chest because timing matters, and this money arrived just weeks after sentencing, while the public assumed the twins were distracted by brand launches and red carpet moments. Sources claim resources were being redirected toward legal teams, private investigators, and quiet conversations with people who had their own complicated histories with 50 Cent. And as the documentary fallout continued, their TikTok account turned into a battlefield when a simple day in the life video showing breakfast, skincare, and baking was swarmed by hostile comments. And instead of engaging, they shut it down, not out of fear, but strategy, because harassment is only useful when it is recorded and then weaponized later. And while 50 Cent continued celebrating, publicly referencing old feuds and past moments, the twins were allegedly compiling every threat, every post, every pattern that could later be framed as targeted aggression, and things escalated further on December 12th, when insiders claim the twins met with a powerful legal team, not just to discuss their father's appeal, but to examine 50 Cent's own history, including financial disputes, industry conflicts, and past allegations that never fully disappeared. And the theory is simple. Pressure creates exposure, and exposure creates leverage. And when you connect all the dots, the fashion brand becomes a distraction, the silence becomes a trap, the courtroom statements become a chess move, and the social media blackout becomes preparation. And if anyone believes two teenagers cannot outmaneuver a veteran industry figure, they may be forgetting who raised them, because they grew up around power, negotiation, and control. They learned when to speak and when to stay quiet, when to push and when to wait. And the most chilling part of this entire situation is the growing belief that the twins are no longer just defending their father, but actively directing the strategy behind the scenes, deciding what gets released, what stays buried, and when the next move happens. And if past patterns in the industry have shown us anything, it is that the most dangerous players are not the loudest ones, but the quiet observers who wait until everyone underestimates them. And by the time the world realizes what is happening, the game has already changed. While Diddy sits behind bars and his empire appears shattered, short pause, his daughters are the ones stepping into elite rooms. Chuckles. Attending List parties, chuckles, launching businesses, short pause, and according to quiet industry whispers, coordinating a counteroffensive that could completely reshape this feud, short pause, because they were never victims and never bystanders, short pause, they were observers, thoughtful students of power who waited patiently for the right moment, short pause. And now that moment may have arrived. Short pause. Because the real question no one has asked yet is what if the twins were never playing defense at all? Short pause. What if the documentary, short pause, the sentencing, short pause, and the flood of public sympathy were all pieces of a larger strategy, short pause? And what if 50 Cent Chuckles, who believed he had already won, Chuckles, is about to discover he has been outplayed by the two people he never considered a threat. Short pause. Because behind the scenes, whispers, sources claim a network of former Diddy loyalists. Short pause. Lawyers. Short pause. Ex-artists. Short pause. And industry insiders with their own unresolved issues with 50 Cent are quietly rallying around the twins. Short pause. Not out of loyalty alone. Short pause, but to reclaim influence and control. Short pause, with meetings stretching from Los Angeles to New York. Short pause, favors traded for information. Short pause, alliances formed in silence. Short pause, and an arsenal built not with noise but with receipts. Short pause, because while 50 celebrated publicly, Chuckles, the twins were documenting everything. Short pause. Every post. Short pause. Every attack. Short pause. Every move. Short pause. Time-stamped and stored. Short pause. Turning a personal feud into a calculated campaign. Short pause. And insiders claim they are not just examining 50 Cent's reputation, but digging into his business dealings. Short pause. Partnerships. Short pause. Tax exposure. Short pause. And media relationships. Short pause. Because to dismantle a man like 50, short pause, you do not attack the surface. Short pause. You target the foundation. Short pause. And the psychological warfare is already underway. Short pause. Because the harassment, short pause, the trolling, short pause, and the memes that followed the documentary were never ignored. Short pause. Pause. They were archived and are now allegedly being prepared for legal action. Short pause. Not for money, but to reframe the narrative and shift public sympathy. Short pause. While former figures connected to the documentary, including explosive voices from Diddy's past, are rumored to have been contacted. Short pause. Not for comfort, but for alignment. Short pause. Ensuring every story supports a larger narrative. Short pause. And if true, thoughtful, the twins are not just isolating 50 Cent. Short pause. They are mapping his entire ecosystem. Short pause. Identifying weak contracts. Short pause. Strained alliances. Short pause. And people ready to abandon ship once pressure mounts. Short pause. Because the strategy is not to wound, but to leave him standing alone. Short pause. And when the money trail is followed, short pause, the $2 million flowing into the twins' fashion brand begins to look less like startup capital and more like operational funding for influence. Short pause. intelligence, short pause, and positioning, short pause, with whispers that the brand itself is a front to broker deals, short pause, secure loyalty, short pause, and finance, private investigations, short pause, pause, because information is the most valuable currency, short pause, and they are spending it carefully, short pause, and perhaps most chilling of all, whispers, is the belief that the twins are studying everything, short pause, including the documentary itself, short pause, identifying exaggerations, short pause, omissions, short pause, and vulnerabilities, short pause, and preparing a counter-narrative of their own, short pause. Not just to defend their father, but to expose hypocrisy at the highest level, short pause. And while 50 Cent believes the battle is over, short pause, the twins are allegedly preparing their next move, short pause. Not on social media, but in court, short pause. Targeting not just him, but his